Lightning strikes as they re-sign a player for the future, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are shaping up to be Stanley Cup contenders yet again. We'll discuss this and much more coming up on this episode of Hattrick HQ. With that said, let's get right into the first topic of this video, which is Lightning Lockup Future. And yes, if you were in tune with the NHL news today, you would have seen that the Tampa Bay Lightning have signed forward Brandon Hagel to an 8-year contract extension worth $52 million. The average annual value, or AAV, of the deal is $6.5 million, and it will begin with the 2024-2025 season. Hagel registered career highs in 22-23 with 30 goals and 34 assists, rounding up to 64 points in 81 games. He also had 5 points in 6 games during the playoffs last year against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Tampa acquired Hagel ahead of the trade deadline in 2022 from the Blackhawks in a deal that cost him a first-round pick in 2023-2024, plus prospects. Hagel was originally selected by the Buffalo Sabres in the 6th round of the 2016 NHL Draft, and the 24-year-old has 64 goals and 132 points in 211 regular season games. Mark, I think this is a huge signing for them. Obviously, a guy who kind of came out of nowhere, a 6th-round pick that has been playing well for the league and has been playing well for Tampa his whole time there, and it's just great to see a guy get paid after putting in such great efforts down there in Tampa.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. The 8-year term is amazing for them too, because you keep them there. Just say they get out of their window a tiny bit and get into the point where they're doing a small little rebuild. You'll still have him at the midst of his career and during his potential. I mean, you seen when he got traded from Chicago, Jonathan Taves came out and said, "I don't know why you trade a guy like this in the middle of a rebuild. He's such a big piece for him." And as you can see for last year for Tampa, he scored 30 goals. He was a menace in the playoffs against Toronto, and I think it's a great deal for both sides. Hagel gets his $6 million per year over 8 years, and Tampa gets a hell of a player they can slot into your top six.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was just gonna say, like he's just a great top 6 forward for any team. And being 24 years of age, I know this guy's the future of Tampa, and I think this is a great contract for him because I think this is a guy who can easily put up 70 or pushing 80 points at some point in his career. And I think he's only getting started. And on a roster like Tampa, I think he's just gonna break out and fly to the moon this season.
No, I completely agree. I think it's a guy you put in. He's a great complementary piece. I mean, if you put anyone on a team with a guy like Point, Kucherov, Stamkos, Cirelli, they're going to put up numbers. He does the dirty things that no one else wants to do. He gets under people's skin, and I just think he fits perfectly on this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a good defensive player as well. I think he's good with his stick, and he's a good. I would classify him as kind of like a grinder type player. I think he gets into corners, does the nitty gritty, and he wins those puck battles in front of the net. That can turn into goals for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is what you're looking for out of a second line winger. I think this is just a great pickup for them. I think this now puts them in a position to potentially contend for Stanley Cup this year, which is going to be our second topic of this video, which is the Lightning look scary yet again. And as we take a look at their depth chart here on Cap Friendly, obviously, we got Kucherov, Stamkos, Point as the first line. They got Hagel, Cirelli, Janot, with Sherry, Paul, and Isimont, I think is how you pronounce it. And then Brown, Glendening, Archibald, rounding out the forward pairing. And obviously on defense, we got Victor Hedman's Chernak with Sergachev and Pierre Bix with Hayden Fleury and Zach Bogosian, with obviously the star goaltender Andrei Vasilevsky. Now, just having an early look at this roster this year, Mark, I mean, this team looks scary. What do you think, as a Toronto fan? I know you guys in Tampa have been battling out over the last couple of years. What are your thoughts about looking at this roster here right now?
It seems like a trend, especially with these East teams. I mean, you've seen the Bruins. It seems like they're cockroaches. You finally think they're done, and they finally surprise you, and then they come back and just play better than ever. And that's the thing with Tampa. You've seen them make, what is it, 4 or 5 or finals so far. They won 2 Stanley Cups. And it's one of the things that management has done such a good job over there, just kind of keeping the players around. You lose a few players here and there, but you pick up pieces like this at the deadline. And I think, even with them losing a bit of depth in like Corey Perry, Pat Maroon, guys like that, I still think, they picked up enough complementary pieces. They still have Vasilevsky. The backup goaltending kind of scares me a little bit because you don't want to see Vasilevsky play so many games as he did last year. As you've seen, he kind of got a little tired at the end. But, I think it's just another team. I think they're going to compete for the Stanley Cup again. Hopefully, the Leafs don't have to face them again, but I do think they're going to be right back in the mix of making to the finals.
Yeah, definitely. I'd had to strongly agree with you there. Obviously, when you have such star-studded power like they do with Kucherov and Point and Stamkos, and a solid defensive defenseman in Victor Hedman back there, man in the defensive unit, with probably, in my opinion, the best goalie in the past probably 5 years with Vasilevsky, or longer, I think, since Carey Price went down. I think Vasilevsky kind of took that role of best goaltender in the league. But that's just my opinion, being a Montreal fan. But, some Tampa Bay fans might disagree. But I think, like I said, I think this organization, like you said, has done a great job with keeping this core together and not letting it fall apart, kind of like what happened in Chicago, when their years are over, everybody kind of left. But I think Tampa's organization has done a great job of keeping all these guys together and keeping them in contention for the Stanley Cup every year, and I think that's where we are this year. I think, if we can have Stamkos can have a good healthy season, and I think, Kucherov as well, if they can all stay healthy this year, they're definitely in the midst for a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The one thing that kind of scares me about this now is you see going into next year that Stamkos is in the last year of his deal. So with this contract kicking in next season, it kind of gets you wondering on how they make a bit of room. I know the cap's going to go up, but it's a situation where if Stamkos still wants $6.5, $7 million, it does get a little tight against the cap. You might lose a couple players here and there. But I think overall, this top six is incredible. You add a couple veteran guys on the back end for close to a million or less. The defensemen are still great between Sergachev, Hedman, and I still think with all this tight cap, you can still see teams kind of figuring things out, and I think Tampa's going to be completely fine with it.
Yeah, I think at the deadline, I think we're definitely going to see Tampa maybe trade for a few defensemen. I think we might see a potential Matt Dumba or someone like that get traded there for their playoff push, which I think, this year's their D hasn't been as stable as it has been before, but I think, with who they got there with Chiranak and Hedman and Sergachev, I think, it's definitely an above average defensive unit than some other teams in the league. And I think we're really going to see Tampa Bay have a push this year to, get that Stanley Cup yet again. And, it all depends on, injuries and all that stuff as well. But as we look back on this Hagel contract here now, like you say, the cap's going up next year. So, in a couple of years, at him for 6.5 over 8 years, I think this deal is going to turn out to be really good for Tampa as we look back on in a couple of years saying, wow, this guy's only making 6.5. Kind of the same way we're kind of with Nylander right now. We're like, man, this guy's only making like 6.9. And I remember when he got signed, everybody was like, wow, why'd they sign him for 6.9? So I think this is a really good deal. I think it's a really good team-friendly deal. And I think that, it definitely sets them up for a good future when, some of these guys start getting up there and start to hang up the skates and retire. I think the future of the Tampa Bay is bright, and I think that this season they're probably going to get another Stanley Cup, but you never know. I'm not a betting man, so I wouldn't place any money on it, but we're gonna but thanks for watching this video. So if you enjoyed it, make sure to comment down below what you think of Tampa Bay Lightning this year. What do you think of this contract? Do you think it's a good contract? Do you think maybe you should have got less, maybe you should have got more? Let us know down below, and thanks for watching. I've been Casey alongside my co-host Mark Pye. Keep your stick on the ice.